Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are watching our book club discussion today. We're here to go over in this session of today, which is the next slide. We're here to talk about chapter 3, and it's a very interesting. It's a chapter that talks about provocation, right? So it's an idea of what exists inside of us, within us, to provoke, to deliberately annoy, to poke at someone, right? Can you, at this point, can you maybe think of anyone in your life, in the movies, in the literature, that's someone that just loves to, oh, instigate, irritate, incite even into acts of rebellion, whatever that may be. All right? Can you also think about how that person can impact you, affect you to become irritated, angry, etc.? Well, this is the third chapter of Wake Up and Be Happy, the book that we are going together, working together. And Joanna de Angelis, in this very small chapter, again, calls attention to us to the notion of that. What I call a divine energy, that energy that links us with the divine, and that energy is everywhere. That energy is an energy that gently touches us. It touches everything. That energy, of course, that is divine in nature, fills all of us with vitality, with health. Well, as such, we are healthy, we are born, we live, we have a sense of peace, of harmony, and connection with the divine. But let's pause for just a second to think about what happens to that state of peace and health when, for whatever reason, we respond to any external event, any source of provocation. And you may think, well, what are you talking about? What are the sources of provocation? Well, in our days, right, in our daily routine every day, it can be the news, it can be social media, it can be an interaction at work or even at home. Anything that is there that can push you to a state no longer of peace and harmony. And those provocations can lead you to a shift into even a state of irritation. And it's important for us to think about those moments because when those happen, we are triggered by, say, oh my goodness, pointless arguments. It can be triggered by, I don't know, let's say power struggles or anything out there that is the source of why would somebody incite irritation, anger, or even rebellion in us. Unfortunately, what Joanna de Angelis calls us here is the fact that as we move away from a moment of being centered and in peace, in balance, and we become, and I call it become prey of, right? We become victims of our own sense of irritability, perhaps our sense of irritation and anger or any of those very strong emotions, they are resulting toxins and they result from our own state of mind that will poison our own body and will impact our health. So this is the relevance why we're talking about it. It's easy, and this is my way of thinking, right? It's easy to imagine the animals in our homes, our different types of pets. I'm an older person. I lived a long time, and I've had proximity with many types of, say, dogs, some that were actually excitable, overexcitable, a Doberman in that case, who that dog was trained to attack and was trained to look at things. It can be a squirrel, it can be a falling leaf, or it can be anything that was out of the ordinary. The dog sprung to action. Whereas we also, my family had a German Shepherd, and German Shepherd is the opposite. They are chill, they're there, and you can imagine young children around the German Shepherd, and as they're learning to crawl, they go, they grab the fur, they will touch and poke, and the dog is just calm, unyielding peace in that. So when we think of that, right? Do you perhaps, if you put in that position, uh, do you think it's in the case of the two, it is better to have that dog that gets easily irritated, or the one that is just easy to handle, to stay in a sense of peace and calm, especially if you have young children around? If we now put that same metaphor to us, what type of dog are we? What type of dog would we rather be? That easily irritated one, or the one that no matter what, it maintains composure, maintains a sense of calm, and can be okay? It is up to you, it's your choice. But it's important for us to think that there is really no reason on earth for heated arguments, but we often fall into them. There are people that we are mostly vulnerable for their quote unquote attacks, their argumentation, their sense of going against the grain. And this is a topic that is especially important in our days, in today's society, where we are so polarized. We are always coming from two different fronts, and going against each other to see who is right and who's wrong. So Joanna, in this book, she cautions us that as we are answering to those who are there with the purpose to trying to make us angry, to because we're perhaps defending to their criticism, as we engage with anything, attacks of who we are, our reputation, even the things that we have or have not done, let's remind ourselves that any type of that interaction may lead to a loss of health. So as we move on to the next slide, just wanted here to talk about the sense of provocation, right? And the most important aspect of provocations is that, believe it or not, they're contagious. If we are around people that like to irritate, to annoy us on a daily basis, we end up being like them, and not only be annoyed, but we start to annoy others. If we are in an environment where people are constantly criticizing, attacking us, calling us name, we end up becoming similar to those. So, as in a organic disease, let us think about, do we want to be exposed to that type of behavior? Do we want to become that person that takes pleasure, we think, takes pleasure in making everybody around them uncomfortable. And I know quite a few of them that as they're provoking, they're inciting that strong reaction, you can start to see the smile in their faces, as in, yes, I got that person that was so chill, so at peace, so comfortable with himself, herself, and I got out of balance, right? But as we see that outward expression of pleasure, of strength, of I got this, it's important for us to analyze and understand that that person is actually probably not in a good place. They are, in fact, most likely in a very dark place and inciting others into argumentation, irritation, anger, annoyance of any type of degree. They're trying to do that often because it will make them feel better when they see the other person feeling just like them. Almost as that cliche, misery loves company. So it's important for us to see that it's not in a good place that those individuals will provoke us. And what is the best thing to do? Well, Joanna tells us simply ignore them and move on. Think about all that is the turmoil that is underneath that person that requires them to move you into a place of anger. Think about all that is going through them and the impact that it has on their own emotional stability, their own emotional and mental and physical health. If I am there pointing the fingers, if I am there provoking you, and I can do this, in my brain, in my mind's eye, I can think about either cartoon or even movies from long, long time ago that you just see those the Three Stooges like provoking and poking and doing all those types of things to get to some sort of reaction. But if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that it's important for us to think about two things, right? One, which is respect, and the idea that to respect is to obey, to listen, to acquiesce to somebody else's desire. So on one hand, we're called upon to respect the other. On the other, we are here with this topic, with this discussion of today. We're here to be reminded that they are, especially those that fall into the category of self-righteousness, there are other people whose opinions are not what maybe is the truth, but we assign the value to those truths. And what we mean by that is the fact that anyone can say, oh, Marcia, you were this and you're that and you're something else. And it's up to me, with the strength of my spiritual maturity, to say, well, I'm sorry, right, that you think of me in those types of things, but I am not going to internalize those attributes that you've given to me, and it's okay, but I'm not going to fall into that. So very important for us to have a sense, especially if you have young children, if you have young adults that you work with, that you live with, that you have an area of influence, to really talk about this, that we need to learn to assign the value that we have of ourselves, not be so vulnerable to whatever everybody feels or labels you, be it by perhaps the color of your skin. And I want to go back to the slide. I don't know if let me go back. Sorry, we just keep talking about this, and so it's very important for us to understand that, to be in that space where we are aware of what people think of you, and it's up to you to accept those thoughts processes, right? On the other hand, we have to understand that. If I feel the pleasure to irritate you, to incite an argument for argument's sake, if I am acting like that, it is actually quite irresponsible of me to do that. And you may ask me, well, why would then somebody uh, as irresponsible as it is, do some of the things that we see today and we've seen in all the history of humanity? Well, many, many times we humans, we are blinded by our own arrogance. We believe our own truth, our own wisdom, and as we believe, and we're just very strongly believer of that truth, as or when we are blinded by our own arrogance and self-righteousness, we become self-appointed keeper of the truth. Can you imagine the danger of that? Can you imagine what that will lead us to be? We raise the flag and we are going to protect the truth, despite the fact that the truth may not be indeed the universal truth. It is my truth. So, controversial types of discussions, especially because it's fueled by two things, right? The media and the social media. So two areas of where you get the most likes or dislikes, the most reaction, the most views, if you are indeed controversial. So as we pay attention, you look around, we see a controversy everywhere we go. And those are the ones that will indeed incite the strongest response, even passionate response. If you take the habit of start just scrolling around, say, I don't know, in your own social media, whatever that may be, and what percolates up are instances where even a very sane, a very mild posting can lead to a lot of responses, a lot of anger, a lot of debate, and go like, oh, it's out of control. But this discussion here today is to understand that maybe those individuals that are incited and they're really angry and post themselves to whatever it is there, it is within themselves that is that sense that I need to say that. So, why do I say this? Because this is just a moment in this short time that we are together on every Sunday to read this tiny book, is a message for all of us here to think about it. What type of person do I want to be? And I send this invitation through the words of Joanna de Angelis to be a messenger of love instead of hatred, to be a builder of hope instead of darkness and turmoil. So let us be peacemakers. Let us look at whatever happens around us, either in the TV, in the news, in the social media, or with people talking to you or calling you, whatever may be the channel of communication. Let us always look at that opportunity as a peacemaker. And with the peacemaker, the best response is sometimes removing yourself ignore, or even be silent. So if we go to the next slide, we just stop a little bit to talk about criticism, right? Why do we stop to talk about criticism? Because we are often, more often than not, targets of someone's opinion, of their criticism. It's a fact of life, and we live in a day and age that, quite frankly, everybody has had an opinion, and everybody's becoming more and more practice or become more and more experts of opinion givers. It is just what it is. But let's think about it. Who is the most amazing, the purest human being to walk on earth that you may know? Oh, Jesus Christ. He was pure. He was absent of malevolence, uh, uh, darkness, and yet, what happened to him? He was continuously tested. He was on a very frequent basis provoked. He was betrayed by his apostles. He was sometimes called a liar, called a rebel, called somebody who came to destroy the peace. All of it in form of criticism or actions. Yet, what do we know about Jesus? Jesus never went down with them. He was and remained untouched by any of that provocation. What an example for all of us. If you think about a closer example to us, and we're talking about Spiritism here, Allan Kardec, right? His life dedicated to codify Spiritism, to write and devote just long days and long nights to do the work that he had in such a period of time. He was also the target of so much criticism. What we know about Allan Kardec? Well, he was an intellectual, and whenever there was a criticism or an attack, what did he do? He never deviated from being a polite person. He always used very polite and respectful language, and he resorted, as it was the case, to clear argumentation to defend his theories. He never ever engaged on attacks to the person, and he never felt attacked on his own ground. So it's very important for us to think about how those are just two examples, and we can go on and on. For me, an example of pure joy that I have close to us is the Brazilian medium, Francisco Cândido Xavier, or as we often call him, Chico Xavier, a man that was devoted to the work, and was able to as a medium to psychograph hundreds and hundreds of books with such an important message. And oh my goodness, he was the target of scrutiny. He was the target of attacks. He always went through all of it, and within himself the struggle to survive that in his long life, right? He lived to be in his early 90s, to until his early 90s, and he too opened his heart, and he never swayed from the mission that he had. So from that, we go to our last slide, where we talk about the idea of perseverance, the idea of having a mission of sorts, be it Chico Xavier, be it Allan Kardec, be it Jesus, or being you. What is your mission? What is your ideal? And how do you think you need to answer to anyone who is against? Maybe because they don't understand you, maybe because the message is not clear to them, maybe because they're hurting. And as they come to you, I just ask of you through Joanna de Angelis, let us be quiet. Let us be silent. But most importantly, let us work with our actions that may prove them wrong in their attacks. And as my last moment here is to really, for all of us that work ceaselessly in name of something that we hold dear and pure, is that let us persevere in our ideals. Let us persevere without believing that we are the owners of truth, right? Because the minute we do this, we become like those that we talked earlier. We become somebody that will attack instead of persevere with our actions. So let us be that idealist that will serve with love and perseverance. And with that, I would like to say goodbye for now. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you listening to this book club discussion of Wake Up and Be Happy. And I'll see you next week.